Hello, everyone, and welcome to the new episode of Entrepreneurship Lab. This is your host, Nevena Bajalac, welcoming you once again to the podcast where we help you grow and scale your business. And as always, bring you very interesting guests, experts in different area. And today we have with us Dave Seymour, originally British, but long time in the United States. And he's going to share with us how he changed his life, how he started his career in States and launched and become one of the biggest real estate investors and successful businessmen in the area. Thank you, Dave, for being in the show and welcome.
Thank you. I love your energy. It's always, even over a podcast, right? You can really get to feel somebody's energy. Like it's upbeat. Like I want to be happy when I'm around you. So I'm excited.
Oh.
I don't care. I don't care if we tell anything that's valuable. I just enjoying the chat that we had before we recorded and listening to you on the introduction because we both have exotic accents, apparently. So that's great.
Exactly. We're going to share that in a minute. But thank you for being here, really. And I appreciate your time and sharing your expertise with everyone listening. And I would like to start with you sharing a little bit your background. I read your bio, but listeners don't know. So
Yeah.
can you tell us a little bit what happened in, when you were younger and how your career
Yeah.
started as entrepreneur? So we hear your story.
Yeah, for sure. No, I appreciate it. Thank you. Maybe it's a little different from the average entrepreneurial journey. I'm not from any collegiate background. I didn't go to Yale or jail. I'm not from Harvard in Boston. I'm very much it was a working class background. I grew up in the south of England. My family was all originally from London. Um, I guess my grandfather on my mother's side was a little bit of an entrepreneur. He was a master baker. He owned a bake shop on the Battersea High Street in London, and Pop was born at the turn of the century. So I remember as a young guy, he could tell some pretty cool stories. He went through two world wars, and he served London proper during the Blitz and all of the craziness that Europe and our world has been through, and unfortunately is going through presently. But if there was any entrepreneurial influence, it was from him. But it was minimal. I grew up being told to, keep your nose clean, David. Keep your head down. Do as you're told, son. Do a nice solid 8 hours of work. Don't make any ripples. Behave yourself, and all will be well. But growing up in the English equivalent of the projects, it was the council estate. We didn't know that we were broke. Give me a football and a piece of grass. I'm off and running. I was a happy kid. I just want to play soccer and run around. But as you mature and as you grow older and your horizons tend to change. I saw a lot of people working hard and getting nowhere fast. And a set of circumstances brought me to America. I followed my first wife here and spent the first few years of my life in the States doing what my father had taught me: work hard, don't lie, don't cheat, don't steal. And I was very blessed. I landed a job just north of Boston working for the city of Lynn, Massachusetts. And I was a firefighter and a paramedic. And yeah, I was the first guy in, last one out. Loved the fire department. Absolutely loved it. I loved the camaraderie. I loved the craziness of the environment. I loved working in a city as well. I
Yeah.
mean, I like, you're running into a building with either a hose or a Scott pack and breathing equipment trying to find the fire, or you're running into the building with a medic bag, hoping that you get the right drug out of the medic bag at the right time so grandpa doesn't circle the drain. So it was pressure. It was high pressure. Again, during that period of time, though, I'm still bringing, blue collar mentality to finance. And I found myself in a position probably around 2004, 5, 6, where my house was in pre-foreclosure because I refinanced it 4 times, like I was told to by everybody who knew more than me. And I was working around 120 hours a week trying to make ends meet between 3 jobs, construction. and it was tough. It was a dark time. I was definitely in the shade back then, as we say, in the faithful environments, and I was looking for something different. I was looking for a way to be present with my family, if you will. It was tough being a husband to a wife. If you're working all the time, it's horrible trying to be a father to a son if you're working all the time. And anyway, I'm screaming and shouting at my God, and I'm like, have you abandoned me, dude? I'm trying as hard as I can. You know, uh, what's the point? I believe we all have a true purpose, and unfortunately, very few of us get to fulfill it. Anyway, I'm sitting in my pickup truck. I'm screaming and shouting at God. I don't recommend that, by the way. He wins every time. And I heard nothing. I'm looking for guidance. I heard nothing. And I turned the ignition on in my truck, and there was a commercial on the radio. I listened to news radio, and the commercial was, I remember it like it was yet. It still gives me God bumps today. Um, I remember the commercial came on the radio, and it was Teach Me Foreclosure, a free 1.5 hour educational seminar coming to your area. Learn how to do real estate with no money down. I'm like, is that it, God? Is that the plan? And I remembered I had flashbacks to my construction time. I worked construction on my days off from the fire department. And I had rubbed shoulders gently with these real estate investor types. I'm digging ditches and they're depositing checks. And I'm like, something's wrong here. And they weren't that smart. Like I questioned them back then. So, the stars aligned, God is good, whatever philosophy you want to use. And that's how I started real estate. I went to an educational seminar. I remember we had an option to invest. It was like $37,000 for like 5 classes of real estate training and education. And I looked at my wife, Mary Beth, and I said, what do you think? Because I can't keep doing what I'm doing. It's not working. And she said to me, she said, go get him, killer. She said, I'm proud of you and I love you. She said, and I support you in whatever it is you want to do. And I said, I'm so glad you said that, baby, because my credit cards are all maxed out. We got to use yours. And Mary Beth became I always phrase it as my first private lender. But what she did for me was something pretty substantial. She encouraged and gave me permission to be wealthy, to do something different, to take care of our family. And once you release the Kraken, it was all over. I was off and running.
Wow.
So that's how I kind of short version, 5 minutes. That's
Wow.
how I kind of ended up in the real estate
I
game
had
from
like
others.
a serious goosebumps when you said that you turned on and commercial was there. And I like that because really, I think the answers are there, but we kind of, I feel like most of the people are just living in this rat race, right? They live in the cloud and they're
Yeah.
complaining. And then, like you said, once you're like sick and tired and you shout to the universe or God, like, this is it, like, give me something. Or, like if you become really angry, they're saying
Mm.
that AI, ChatGPT works the best when you threaten it as well. Like, give me that. So I feel it's the
Yeah.
same with the universe. When you show the energy that you're serious, like I want, because the God and the universe will always give you what you're asking for, always.
Mm-hmm.
It's just
Mm-hmm.
that our eyes, our mind is closed. We cannot hear sometimes. We cannot see opportunities there. And wow, this is so mind blowing because I want you to tell now what have you achieved since then, because also this is inspiring for people to understand that you can change, and you worked for a very long time, had a career, family, and
Mm.
really you started with nothing. And what I like is that the beginning is always also investing in yourself, not
Sure.
trying to do something between the lines or something. You really invested in yourself and said, I'm going to do this. So tell us
Yeah.
how, like, what have you achieved? And then we're going to go back in between the timeline to see some other
Sure.
interesting things that were
Sure.
happening.
Sure. Coming out of that education environment, I'm 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 on fire, right? Like I see some things that I had never seen before. My eyes were opened, right? Ask and you shall receive. Knock and the door will be opened, right? Seek and you shall find. And I was on a journey. I mean, I'm seeking. I'm a seeker, and There was probably 300 people in that class that I attended, and we'll say 10%, so 30 to 50 people will say actually invested in themselves and started this journey. And I'm a bull. I'm like, let's go. Come on, everyone. We're going to change our lives. We're going to be wealthy. It's going to be great. We can do business together. Real estate is a sport. It's a coming together. It's not competition. It's collaboration. Let's go. And I remember 3 months, 6 months down the line, I'm looking around and there's nobody around me anymore. Like everybody had faded away. And I remember saying to Mary Beth, where did everybody go? And my wife said something to me that was critical in me being on this call with you today. She made an observation and she said, you know what's happened, David? She said, everybody that was there that invested in themselves, very few went for implementation. They went for a lot of conversation, they went for a lot more education, and they had very little implementation. And she said, and she was the first one to recognize it. She said, you implement what you learn. She said, and we have bought and paid for other people's mistakes so that we can minimize our own mistakes. That's what that investment was all about. So, as a direct result of that, being an implementer, I was then asked to be an educator. And then, because I'm an educator, I'm involved with a different group of individuals. I'm involved with internet marketers. I'm involved with, day traders. I'm involved with designers, people who are building incredible SaaS services, right? Software. And my experiences were changing dramatically. And there was a gentleman by the name of Russell Brunson. And Russell Brunson was the founder of ClickFunnels, which was a huge online. And Russell sent me an email. He's part of a group that we were all together back then. And he sends me an email and he says, Dave, you're a funny son of a gun, man. He said, you should try for one of those reality TV shows, flipping houses and stuff. So I ended up on a national TV show. I'm on Flipping Boston. I'm on A&E Network. And my exposure increases. And with the increase in exposure, increases opportunities, right? Perceived experts in the marketplace. And as a direct result of that, we built out a really nice education platform. I was flipping a lot of houses, making my money. The first year I paid more in taxes than I earned as a firefighter. I went, things have changed. Things have definitely changed. And we progressed. We progressed into a portfolio of single family, multifamily, small multifamily rental units. So I learned that tenants, toilets, and trash are not my favorite pastime, but I broke my bones in the business. I learned the business from the ground up. Became a hard money lender and a private lender. I worked with some guys off of Wall Street who had lines of credit that we could use. Had a really nice business in lending capital. And what that did was it's interesting. Everything has been a stepping stone. It's a progression. And along the way, we developed a philosophy that stands true today is to put people first and profit second. Just because somebody has capital to do a deal doesn't mean my deal is the right deal to do it with. Just because a seller is so desperate that they'll sell for next to nothing doesn't mean we need to take advantage of them. Just because a realtor says that it's a great deal, go in there and do the due diligence. Make sure that everything is copacetic going forward. So we built some of these philosophies, and what happened is that brings some really nice tailwinds behind you. People who want to associate with you will recommend you, will refer you. And that took us to where we are today, where we've launched an education platform called Legacy Alliance Capital Partnership Program, where we're teaching people multifamily investing, but on a larger scale, 50 to 100 maybe, or 25 to 50 units. How to underwrite them quickly, how to really consolidate all of that data and say, yeah, that's a deal worth investing in. And we work with them for about a year or so. We coach them through that stuff. And then when they bring deals to us, they don't have to do the deals with us, but if they want to do the deals with us, we then put those deals out to our finance partners. So it's a really nice synergy where they can find the deals, we can potentially capitalize on the deals. And then at the same time, we're building our own portfolio through our investment firm at Freedom Venture Investments. where we're building out about 300 million in fund structure right now to be able to, just put cash flow back into somebody's pocket. I mean, everybody's paying out and there's not a lot coming in right now. So the question always is to, investors, what would it be like if you could passively invest, collect cash flow through commercial real estate investments, and take a nice position on the back end where we either sell an asset or refinance an asset, and our investors have an expectation of doubling their money over 3 to 5 years. So it's an aggressive time, but it's a great time, and there's so much opportunity coming down the pike. Something like 3 trillion in commercial real estate loans that were badly underwritten, badly processed. There's always a coming. There's always a
Yeah.
coming to resolution. So we
Yeah.
see a lot of opportunity in the future. So that's kind of where we're at today.
Wow. And I want to ask you, I mean, you mentioned I know very well about Russell. I don't know him, but I know I
Mm.
use ClickFunnels and I've been on their seminars for many years when I
Yeah,
started
yeah,
my journey as well. So I'm familiar with the very well-known group of entrepreneurs, and I believe that environment probably helped you change your mindset.
huge.
So what was like what because it's a huge shift, right? It's simply a mindset because you started
Mm,
learning different things and then
mm,
you change your self-belief like, hey, I can be the guy. Like
mm.
probably I don't know when you started, but let's say 15, 20 years ago, maybe you never thought, hey, I can be the guy to talk about $1 million or trillions of dollars, or like
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
our mindset because we cannot see ourselves or imagine ourselves being there.
Mm,
So what do
mm.
you think played the main role? Was it the environment? Was it the education? Was it the support system to help you switch that mindset? Because I feel that's the puzzle that like that self-belief or self-doubt, it's really standing on the way sometimes for a long time. For some people, very short, for some
Mm.
people, very long time. That's why some people get results faster and some takes longer. So what was it for you? Do you remember?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, we could talk for 3 days on that philosophy alone because most people just skim over that, right? They just breeze by the fact that the mindset is the foundation. They go, oh yeah, that's Tony Robbins stuff, and then they move on. But what they seem to forget is that there are 6 inches of detrimental thinking that live between my ears, right? And if I cannot reprogram and reset my internal dialogue to a one of positivity and success, then I'm consistently going to listen to the negative stuff. And I had a mentor early on. Her name was Amy Jenkins. We used to call her Mama J. She was a fiery redhead from Texas. And she was teaching a class one time, and there was a lot of negativity coming from the student base. Yeah, but, those that can't and those that can, they're both right. It all depends on the way that they reframe it in their minds. But she stopped this class one time and she was fiery and she was upset. And I never forgot the moment. She said, I need to tell you something. She said, you're not too old and you're not too young. You're not too fat or thin, black, white, rich, poor, man, woman, up, down, left, right, Republican, Democrat. There is nothing about you that can stop you from being successful other than you. She said, the one person, 2 people in your life that said that you can't, she said they were liars. They were liars. She said, Mama J stand in front of you right now telling you that you can, and we're here to support you. And I remember thinking to myself, if I am the common denominator of the 5 people that I allow to influence me the most, who are they? And I started thinking about, some of my brothers in the firehouse who were just complainers, just negative dudes, man. I loved them. They got my back, I got theirs, but they were just negative dudes. And I'm like, I have to change my environment if I want my environment to change. And that was the biggest decision I made. I spent a lot of time working on like the law of attraction. I was a true believer in The Secret by Rhonda Byrne. I became a massive fan of Jack Canfield, author of Chicken Soup for the Soul. I ended up spending $20,000 just so I could hang out with Jack for a day. Cool story, set of circumstances. I'll tell it another time. But I believe I'm a man of belief and I am a believer. I believe that we all have an inner gift, and it's so important to find it, commit to it, and execute on it. And all the people who say no, I welcome them. Everyone who said no to me, I said thank you, because every single no got me closer to a yes. And I've just tried my very, very best to live that. But that, Russell Brunson, Gary Vaynerchuk was on the periphery. There were some really, really powerful people around me who allowed me into their circles of influence. And
Yeah.
that's a game changer right there. That's an absolute
Yeah.
game changer right there, for sure, for sure.
Yeah, I love it. You can see behind me like
Yeah.
Abraham Hicks and like so many books, Tony Robbins,
Sure,
and
sure.
one first book that was actually changer for me is somebody I think I haven't even met, but I spoke with someone online. I don't even remember if you believe me, but somebody recommended me Rich Dad Poor Dad. And I read a book and I remember how big of emotional impact it had on me because I
Huge.
was like, wait, I was the top in my university, everything, but
Mm,
nobody ever talked about money or taught us anything about money or
hmm
investing
hmm
or and I was like, oh my God. And I made a decision. I remember after reading that, and I read it in like a one day. And I said it to
Yeah.
all my family and friends. And guess what? I think nobody read it. Yes. So, and I was like, I made a decision that I will read any book possible or go to any seminar. And that's how my life
hmm
also started changing because I get to one seminar, another, first mentor,
hmm
and so on. And, back forward, I also wrote 3 books in the last couple of years. And I
Awesome.
never even imagined I will do these things or invest like I did now and build my first Airbnb and do all of these things. But I think there's some moments, and that's why I wanted to ask you that become very, very powerful and are kind of like, we don't forget that they make huge emotional impact on us. That we say, hey, yes, I can be the one. I can do this, and it's unbelievable. But I want to
Mm.
ask you on this journey, let's not make it like all roses, it's probably been difficult,
Sure,
So let's
sure.
let's talk about real picture because I meet so many investors and people do so many. And I remember myself 5, 10 years ago, like, sometimes you cannot make even $2,000 investment because you have a salary and bills to pay and you're trying to
Mm, mm,
save. And
mm.
so you were at that moment in debt with credit cards, you invest in your education. So how did you started with your first investment? Like, was it a loan? Was it, like how did you, because for many people, I know from my experience, sometimes seems impossible to get there.
Mm,
And I think
mm.
sharing the real picture or real struggle or finding the means or the first deal, that was a big shift for me. When I purchased my first land, I felt like I finally achieved something. It was so like I
Yes.
achieved many things, but kind of financially, I felt like now I tangibly have something for my future
Mm.
that's going to bring me something in a couple of years. And yeah, so what was it the first deal for you and how you got there?
Yeah, you mentioned something there in the sense that a lot of people who begin, it's just so big, right? It's so big. That $1 million, that 20 million, that billion, whatever it is, right? That first deal, it's so big. How do I get there? And I, like you, read a lot of business oriented stuff. And one of my favorites was, how do you eat an elephant? You eat an elephant one bite at a time, right? So being able to chunk down a day's activities into 1 hour, 2 hour increments, and then celebrate and each success that you have along the way. I made 10 calls today and everybody said no. That's a successful day, right? Because I made 10 calls. So my first transaction was what we call a wholesale transaction, which is controlling a piece of real estate with a purchase and sales agreement, and then selling that. And I did it with a bank-owned property during the crash. So I broke my bones during the financial crisis when everybody else was running out. We went running in, kind of like the firefighter mentality. And I made $5,000 by moving paper. And I remember coming out of the attorney's office with this check for 5 grand. And it truly was a moment of affection, right? It affected me massively because I stood there. It was a cold October night in New England, in Massachusetts, and I got a check for 5 grand from an attorney's office. And I thought to myself in that moment, how many hours did I trade of my time to make $5,000? And I probably put 4 hours of physical work into this thing to make 5 grand. Whereas I was hoping to make $200 for an overtime shift in the firehouse for 10 hours. And once that happened, you couldn't stop this, you know? You can't touch that. You can't touch it. Don't. It's like one of those moments. And I went, it almost felt illegal for me. Like I was waiting for the big black sedans to pull up and take me away. And I'm like, no, it's legal. It happens every single day. I just didn't know until I knew. And what that did was it put me on a trajectory. But to get there, I got to get educated. I got to be integral. I've got to be honest. I got to be open. And I reached out to investors locally. I made friends. Pete, the guy on the TV show with me, was one of the early guys that I connected with. And I offered whatever resources I could give. See, a lot of people go out and they want something for nothing, right? I've always tried to say, hey, what can I bring of value to this relationship, to this party, to this deal? What is it that I can bring? And it's not always money. Everybody thinks it's money. I don't have any money, so I got no value. No, I was a firefighter, so I had relationships at City Hall, for example, that I could share with investors who needed help. So I did that a lot. People trust the firemen. So I used that as well, and then once we got the TV show, it took off. But that first deal was absolutely instrumental for me. And, like it or don't like it, I called it that check was my first check. I called it a shut up check. And that was the check that I showed to everybody who said I couldn't do this business. All the naysayers, I showed them the check and I'm like, shut up. See that? It says 5 grand on there. How you
I
doing?
love it.
You know what I mean? So yeah, I wish everybody gets their first shut up check. I really do.
Yes, I love it. Thank you, Dave, for sharing that with us. And I mean, I feel I can speak to you forever, but we have to wrap up soon. And I like to ask my guests if you can go back in time, everything you know
Mm,
now, and you wish there is one thing somebody told you about building a business that you
mm.
think it would help you do it faster or get maybe even better results. What is it? What is the one thing you think it's important to share or you wish you
Yeah,
knew earlier?
yeah, it's implement. It's implement. And if I can look, we say that a shortcut has a negative connotation to it, right? It's not. It's not research and development. It's rip off and duplicate. There's no original idea, right? Bring
Yeah,
your own flavor to something, implement and execute, 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 execute.
yeah.
Analysis paralysis is a terminal illness for business owners. You don't know, here's how to phrase it. You don't have to know everything to do something. And so many people think they have to know everything to move forward. You don't. Look to your left and your right. Who's supporting you? Who's mentoring you? Who's guiding you? And then take a leap of faith and just know that God is good. You're on this planet to do great things and help other people. And you can do that through business no other way that I know of. So those are my pearly words of wisdom.
Amazing. Well, thank you, Dave, for sharing everything today and being here. And we're going to make sure to put a connection with you and description. There are some links to our educational platform as well in the description of the episode. So I'm inviting all listeners to connect with you and go and learn. Education is the most powerful thing for sure.
For sure. Thank you for having me. God bless.
Thank you everyone for listening once again. Make sure to connect with Dave. Enjoy, leave us your comments, leave us likes, hearts. And as always, we are here to hear you, to support you, and bring you the best experts so you can learn and grow as well. Thank you for listening, and I see you in the next episode.